Welcome to Developing Information Literacy and Communication Skills, a freshman seminar presentation. By information literacy, we mean a few different things. There are different types of information literacy related to computer, media literacy, and cultural literacy. And we've talked about some of these things already in our future presentation, Thinking in College. So some of the things that relate to information literacy will actually pop up in our discussion about critical thinking and thinking in college in our next week's presentation. Literacy skills include knowing how to find information that you need and then how to interpret that information, and having a purpose behind what you're looking for, and use that also includes how to use it. One of the best ways that you can gain information literacy skills is to continue developing your own research. By the time you watch this presentation, many of you already will be kind of experienced in college level writing. Many of you are probably in Writing 1 or other classes that require significant writing for you. But if you didn't quite catch all the research information, or if you are not in any classes yet that require you to do a lot of research, either way, this is a good section for us to really bear down and get some good information. One thing to do before you really start researching is to start thinking about how to narrow your topic. Now, sometimes as a Writing 1 instructor and Writing 2 instructor, I recommend to students that maybe they do start some research because that will help them narrow their topic, and that they're researching with that purpose in mind. In general, though, think about how you want to research a topic. You're going to think about certain keywords that will bring up specific ideas rather than general ideas. Then you're going to move from general to narrow. And as you're doing this, then you should be starting to research so that you can see that you're going to be able to get enough research for this paper. Sometimes encyclopedias and wikis are really good for narrowing a topic. While these are often not appropriate sources for college level writing and papers, they can help you get a better sense of the topic in general and see all the different parts of it. Then you can narrow down to one of those parts. You can also find different information sources, and we've got kind of a list here. Again, hopefully you have covered these in Writing 1 by this point, but keep in mind that a lot of these things on here, the first three items are periodicals, things that come out fairly regularly. Unlike books, which you get one book and then maybe you get another one in a series of it, but many books just come out on their own and kind of stand on their own there. So you can see that there are newspapers, magazines, and then scholarly articles. And as you work on your college writing, you're really going to want to focus on scholarly articles. These are going to be articles that you should be using in many of your classes, and you want to get some experience. Many students are not experienced looking for scholarly articles, and it's a real learning curve looking for them the first time. So you want to make sure that you spend some time learning how to do that and work that into your time plan for preparing your. Let's discuss the different resources available at the library. You probably know about some of these, but many students arrive at college not realizing how many different things they might have access to at a college library. Ancilla College Library is a little bit limited on some of these things, but as a college student in Indiana, if you are an Indiana resident, you actually do have a right and can go to different Indiana libraries. And you can also apply and get a card through Ancilla College Library to go visit other Indiana libraries as a scholar if you want to. So even if things are limited here at Ancilla with the library, there are still many things we can do for you through our library, and we have access to other libraries as well. So some things that you may not be available or think about is government documents and microfilm, where they have newspapers and other documents kind of shrunk down to a miniature level. You have to use a machine to look at it. It's really cool. There are various types of media available: music, photographs, also DVDs, things like that can really help you. Most libraries have a pretty good online presence. We do have a website here at Ancilla. Many other libraries do as well. We've talked a little bit already about scholarly articles and journals, but those are going to be really, really important for you as a college student. Those have been peer-reviewed. That means that other scholars in college and researchers have written these articles, but then these articles have been reviewed by other researchers and scholars who are pretty well known in the field. who go through and suggest changes and kind of validate that these are good articles before you even ever see them. You use these searching via online databases like here at Ancilla College we use EBSCOhost and Gales Engage, and also Statista is a good one as well. These are all pretty standard for the field. You're going to have access to these and more pretty much any other college you go to. And of course you can search via our library catalog and see what we do have available. And there's a lot that we can get through interlibrary loan as well. You just have to give it a little bit of time. Periodicals are things like magazines, newspapers as well. Of course there are books, and all of these things again are things that can be borrowed from other libraries if we need to. When you start to research, you might want to follow the 10-minute rule. Search for things for at least 10 minutes yourself, and if you're still struggling, then ask for help from a librarian. Again, these are people who are trained in research and who are paid to help you. So keep all those things in mind as you go to evaluate sources. Remember that if you're really looking to do college-level research and college-level writing, you're going to have to dig a lot deeper and get into some of the databases like EBSCOhost, Gales Engage, Statista. There are other ones out there, but those are the main ones that we have access to and have subscriptions at Ancilla College. If you're just using Google or Bing to do search, keep in mind that most of what you're going to find right away is not serious research and not probably very appropriate for a college level writing project or for arguing. Literally anybody can put down money in a website and have people listening to what they say. That does not make them credible. That doesn't mean you should use them in your own writing, especially college level writing. When you're looking at research, you should also figure out how relevant it is. In other words, if it's relevant to the level of work that you're supposed to be doing. Some sources are really just an introductory level and background level, and those are okay for getting a basic understanding, but really you want to move past that as you get into college level writing. Comprehensive means is really covering the topic well. Are they doing analysis, or are they just providing information? Again, oftentimes as we progress in our college career, we want to do work that includes some analysis. We also want to make sure it's up to date. Using old information or old research or theories that have since been kind of disproven or may not be taken seriously in our field, that can really damage us. So again, we want to make sure that we're really thinking about how relevant our sources are. Here are some practical things to think about in terms of, is your author someone who has authority, or organization that you're reading something by? Do they have authority and credibility? So, is the author qualified to write or speak? Are their conclusions based on solid evidence? You might look at what their qualifications are. That might be academic degrees. Sometimes other research and writing on the subject. Again, you're going to look to see if they're in scholarly journal articles for that kind of thing. Sometimes related personal experiences is good depending on the field. But again, keep in mind, just because somebody's worked in a field for 20 years doesn't mean they're taken seriously. One of the things that you have to be especially careful is like cable news and talk show hosts. A lot of these people, they really have no background. They're not taken seriously within the political world. But for some reason, well, not for any reason, they're very entertaining. People love to get all emotional, and so they watch these without really evaluating them and think that they're people with authority and credibility when really they aren't. So we want to really examine this as we start getting into college level. The last thing we'll look at in terms of critical thinking is bias. And again, this is something we want to be on the outlook for within the sources that we're reading, but also as we encounter them, not only in our research, but just in various aspects of life, trying to understand what bias means. Well, bias is somebody's personal belief without research that influences their viewpoint. And again, we can see this all around us. Sometimes as a good concerned citizen, you need to be aware that this is present in the media. And of course, some of them have sort of social or political bias. A lot of times that's misrepresented, to be quite honest with you. Different sides accuse each other of having conservative or liberal bias. More likely, a lot of people who study media will kind of point out a little bit more that news sources, rather than being liberal or conservative, they call each other that, but really they all sort of, most or all of them have sort of a capitalist or consumerist bias. Again, not saying that's a horrible thing, but keep in mind that many of these companies, whether it's MSNBC, who has often a more liberal bent, or Fox News that has more of a conservative bent, and places in between, what they have in common is they rely on advertising to stay in business. So they're going to cover things in such a way that helps them be more relevant and more popular for advertisers, regardless of their political point of view. And a lot of people, again, they don't think about that. They think in terms of politics, but underlying all of that is they have a bias towards whatever they need to do to cater to their audience to sell products. So there are different types of biases that we need. So here are some ways to determine if you're encountering a source that has some bias. And again, this may be on TV, maybe within the academic articles you find, things like that. Doesn't always mean you shouldn't use it, but you should at least be upfront and honest and represent that to your readers as part of what's involved with that source. So some ways to determine that. Number one, if they use overtly positive or harsh language towards someone or something. So if they praise something quite a bit and they're almost afraid to be critical of it, or if they use very harsh language. If there is an agenda, like why they would benefit from it. And again, that could be financially, that could be from a power standpoint, it could just be from getting their way. And a big one is a stubborn refusal to consider other ideas. If you look at the source and they really are unwilling to even consider other points of view, probably you should just throw it away and not use that one. Because that means they're not really using critical thinking. They're relying on their bias for whatever they're bringing in. They're going to be limited in what kind of evidence they're going to show you. And really that's something that has no place in a college level paper. Hopefully as you continue and develop as a college student, you'll be able to better and better identify bias and when it often is not appropriate to use in your own. Whether you're writing papers or preparing speeches, you want to always make sure that you cite your sources. What that means is that you're telling your readers or listeners where your information came from. You're borrowing information from other sources, and that's what we as college level writers do, but you want to make sure you tell where you got them. That also helps your readers see that you have really good evidence and that you're very credible. Make sure that any exact words are put in quotation marks and that you use that person's name in your paper so they get credit. But that also includes their ideas as well. So most of us come into college knowing that, yeah, if I have a quote, I need to tell where I got it. But also if you're using somebody's ideas, even if you're paraphrasing them, that's actually a really good form of use in writing, but you still want to give them credit. Basically, rule of thumb, any information that wouldn't be considered common knowledge, you need to make sure you cite where you got it in your source. And your instructors may have you using MLA and APA formats. Other colleges, and as you get more into your fields, you'll have even other formats pop up as well. But these are the main two that you're going to encounter at Ancilla College. One big topic you really want to make sure you're aware of and know the best you can is about plagiarism. Plagiarism basically taking somebody else's ideas and presenting them as your own. That's the same as theft, and if you do that in a workplace, you can be fired, terminated. In terms of academic work, that's considered dishonesty, and different colleges have different policies about how they deal with that. Ancilla, specifically, you can lose credit for an assignment and be given a 0 for an assignment, and then subsequent times you're caught cheating, you can be expelled from the college. Note that in the slide and what I just presented is what I've been provided to share with you in terms of Freshman Seminar, but you'll want to make sure that you look at your student handbook and make sure that you see that on academic dishonesty, because and make sure that you understand the ramifications of it and what can happen. Many instructors, including yours truly, many of us do review papers for plagiarism. That's something that we look at. A lot of us use an electronic software called Turnitin, and we use that, and I have repeatedly caught students cheating. So you definitely want to avoid that, and you want to make sure that You're just doing your own work. You're not plagiarizing, and